Today, my group will be talking about David Eagleman's book Livewired and its connection to this week's topics such as the organization of the brain, localization of function, neural imaging techniques, etc. Livewired is an exploration of how the brain is constantly modifying itself as it learns new information about the world. This book contains 7 key points. First is, the brain can reconfigure themselves however they need to. Second, the brain can process whatever sort of sensory information it receives. Third, the brain can learn to operate any sort of body to which it's connected. Fourth, the brain adapts based on what's important to it. Fifth, the brain locks down stable information so we don't have to think about it. Sixth, brain plasticity declines as we grow older. And lastly, older memories endure more effectively than recent ones. Now, let's hear from my group as they elaborate on the topic and use examples from Livewired by David Eagleman.
The human brain weighs approximately 1.4 kilograms or 3 pounds, and is made up of billions of cells called neurons. It consists of 3 distinct regions: the hindbrain, the midbrain, and the forebrain. Junctions between neurons enable electrical and chemical messages to be transmitted. The hindbrain is the part of the brain that connects the lower and higher parts of the spinal cord. The medulla oblongata transmits signals and from the cerebrum. It also controls such autonomic functions as heartbeat and respiration. The pons is partly made up of tracts connecting the spine with higher brain levels. The forebrain includes the cerebral hemispheres and the brainstem, which contains the thalamus and hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the control for sex drive, pleasure, pain, hunger, thirst, blood pressure, and other visceral functions. In humans and other advanced vertebrates, the cerebrum has grown over the rest of the brain.
In many parts of mammalian brain, spatially adjacent stimuli on sensory receptor surfaces are represented in adjacent position in the cortex, a pattern known as topographic organization. The topographic organization provides invaluable information about brain function and structure. There have been major advances in non-invasive methods of imaging the functioning of the brains of normal participants engaged in various cognitive activities. These advances in neural imaging are among the most exciting developments in cognitive neuroscience. These are the methods: electroencephalography, magnetoencephalography, positron emission tomography, functional magnetic resonance imaging.
Medical professionals use magnetic resonance imaging as a non-invasive technique to identify medical disorders and for mapping brain activity. This machine was created in the 1990s. It is a strong magnetic field with radio frequency pulses, and a computer are all used in MRI to provide precise images of inside body structures. Medical professionals can study the body and find disease thanks to detailed MR pictures. The brain's active regions can have their blood flow slightly altered, which can be seen by functional magnetic resonance imaging. It's actually becoming the diagnostic method of choice when learning a normal to life-threatening risks related to the brain.
How does the brain changes itself? There is known as brain plasticity or neuroplasticity. It is the ability of the brain to reform itself and make new neural connections. Through neuroplasticity, the brain consistently rewiring itself and modifying its connections. The brain can recognize itself, both structure and how it's function. And without neuroplasticity, we wouldn't be able to do many things that make us human. It includes learning, developing, or forming memories. The brain has always changing itself because it can adapt and learn for more new things or life experiences. Neuroplasticity makes our brain to be more resilient.
Neuroplasticity occurs as a result of learning, experience, and memory formation, or as a result of damage to the brain. The brain is a dynamic system constantly altering its own circuitry to match the demands of the environment and the capabilities of the body. For example, a boy with a rare chronic inflammatory disease, triggering many epileptic seizures that could only be treated with a surgical removal of an entire half of the brain. When he woke up after the surgery, he was incontinent and couldn't walk or speak. Yet, with daily physical and language therapy, he regained these abilities. The brain is remarkably plastic. It can compensate for dramatic loss of brain structures, and in some cases, the remaining networks can support almost typical cognition. Existing neural pathways that are inactive or used for other purposes take over and carry out functions lost because of the injury.
Example of brain plasticity: Rheumatoid encephalitis, a rare chronic inflammatory disease. The problem with the disease is that it affects not just a small bit of the brain but an entire half. The symptoms appear to be having a series of intractable periods of seizures, like having a shortening durations between woman's contractions during a labor. The only one known treatment is hemispherectomy, or the surgical removal of an entire half of the brain. The brain that is being removed contains intellect, emotion, language, sense of humor, fears, and love. And the other half of the brain, inside the skull, is filled up with cerebrospinal fluid, appearing in neuroimaging as a black void.
So what makes human brain unique compared to other species? We are acknowledged to be the most intelligent species in our planet, at least in our own standard. The main difference between our brain and other species is intelligence. Research shows that our cerebral cortex, which is responsible for cognition, is much larger, thicker, and contains billions of neurons, whereas animals have smaller and contains relatively lesser neurons in their cerebral cortex. Our brain have more highly developed neural connections, which makes us intelligent compared to other animals that have lesser. Our impressive cognitive ability separates us from other species in the earth. Complex processing such as conscious thought, self-awareness, and most of all, language are things that separates and proves that among the species in the earth, we are currently the most evolved and intelligent.
The human brain is anything but stating fact. It's constantly growing and changing as it adapts to new information and circumstances. The brain is always changing. When you are learning, important changes takes place in your brain, including the creation of new connections between your neurons. Not having new experiences and learning new things will slow down your brain and make it less responsive. As we studied about this week's topic, we learned that the brain is organized into a number of distinct areas which serve different types of functions, with the cerebral cortex playing the major role in higher cognitive functions that serves as different specific areas of the brain support different cognitive functions. Techniques like EEG, MEG, fMRI, and TMS are allowing researchers to study the neural basis of human cognition with a precision starting to approach that available in studies.